Hi, I'm Bernard Sheridan, and welcome to Par Breakers Golf Academy Live. Tomorrow's spring, so everybody in northeast part of the country is really excited because, of course, they can get out. It was a really tough winter all winter here in the Philadelphia area, so people are really glad to get out. But here in Oaks today, as you notice that I'm wearing a turtleneck and a sweater because it's a little cool. And it's not really feeling too spring-like today. But before you know it, spring will be here, and you're going to get the opportunity to get out and play. And, of course, the whole time we want you to be keeping in touch with us here at Par Breakers so we can help you with your game, because that's what it's all about. We're here to help you with your game. So today we're going to take a look at long irons, and we're going to take a look at hybrids. And should you have a hybrid in your bag? Well, if we look at a lot of the guys on tour now, all the guys on tour have at least one hybrid in their bag. There's not a lot of guys who are out there hitting 2 irons. There might be a few here and there, but overall what they're finding is that to hit a hybrid is a lot easier than to hit a long iron. There's a couple different reasons. Number one, it has a lot more mass, okay? So when you have more mass, what happens is they can lower the center of gravity in this club, and it's going to make it a lot easier to get the ball up into the air. That's number one. Number two, because you have more mass across the entire face, you're going to get a lot more forgiveness. So if I happen to hit this thing out towards the toe or a little bit towards the heel off the sweet spot, the ball's still going to carry more than likely pretty much the same distance, and it's going to stay on line. That's the more important part, is that these clubs are going to stay on line a lot better than your long irons are. Now, for my students, and I know myself, I like to have hybrids from the 4-iron up. So if in my bag, I have a couple of wedges, and then we go right up through all my irons to a 5-iron, and then starting with the 4-iron, I use a hybrid. I'm holding a 3-iron hybrid right now, and then I also have a 16-degree hybrid, which is essentially a 1-iron. That's when I really need to thread the eye of a needle on a tight fairway or a long par 3, and then that I can almost hit that as far as a 3 would. So my 3 wood is like right around 15 degrees. So I'm probably going to move that to about 13 so I can get a little bit more out of it. 13-degree 3 wood is called a tour spoon. But we're really here to talk about hybrids. So a lot of times, and I was actually asked a question earlier this year about hybrids and by one of my students, and like, how am I swinging this in comparison to how I'm swinging the rest of my irons? Well, you're swinging it, it's going to feel like you're swinging it more like a wood. So the takeaway on this club is a lot longer and shallower, okay? So in other words, you're not going to get it up steep like you would an iron. You're going to kind of take it back low and come through low, okay? And you need to keep down and through on these clubs, same as you do with a long iron, but the deal is when you're hitting this at a rough or when you're hitting it a real long distance, it's just going to hold the line a lot better, and especially out of the rough, it's going to muscle through a lot better. So if we look at this club, our setup is pretty much the same as we would with a regular long iron or a middle iron, okay? And we're going to kind of sweep that thing on the ground, sweeping it back, sweeping it through, okay, to get the max out of it. So when we hit it, even if we hit it thin, it's still going to go, okay? And that's what I just did. I just hit it thin. So we'll take a look again, another one. That's better. So hybrids, they need to be taken away low, okay? Let's take a look at another one. Here's the 4. So if you take a look at the 4 hybrid, pretty much the same thing. Now remember, when we talked about irons, This thing has a leading edge, just like an iron does, okay? It's right here. So if I'm setting this up on the leading edge, shaft's going to lean a little bit forward. Let's take a look at that. There's shaft. A little bit forward. We can see where it is in my stance. Okay? It's just a little bit ahead of the center of my stance. As a matter of fact, if we're looking at that club head, the club head itself is right in the middle of my stance and the ball's in front of it. Okay? So that would be a 4. So this is the same as a 4 iron. If I was swinging a 4 iron, it would be the same exact thing. If I take a 5 iron, I'm going to step off camera just for a second here. Now if I take a 5 iron, there's my rule for that, okay? So remember we didn't really talk about this on the show, but what we want to remember is that on the leading edge of all our clubs, okay, which is right near the face, okay, this sole basically is split in half. We look at that leading edge, we square that leading edge to the target. We want to kind of get that butt of that club pointing at our belt loop. Now what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to get the club to bottom out in front so that way we're hitting the ball and we're taking a divot. Okay? So if you notice that 5, here's the 5. And if I set that up, there's where a 5 iron is in my stance. That's like right in the middle. Okay? Here's the 4. We can see that's pointing a little bit past my belt loop now, so I have to move just a hair back. Okay, so that ball's going to move just a hair ahead in my stance as opposed to an iron. So if we're hitting this, same deal. We're set up, and we're checking this point here, making sure that it's in the correct point in our stance. If we were to take a look at this on the overhead camera, okay, then what we can do is we'll see that if you look at where that club head is, it's basically right in the middle of my stance here. Okay, so that way when I go to hit it, the club's bottoming out in front. That's where the shaft's going to become vertical. Okay, with this club. So if I hit this thing, and we'll go back to camera 1. Basically what happens here is it's going to be right in the middle of my stance is where that club head is going to be for a 4. Go back to the 3. Here's the 3. And we'll check that. We'll take a look at the overhead camera with that one. And we're going to see that that's further forward in my stance now, okay, in relationship to where the 4 was. So what you can think of as a rule of thumb is, and back to our front camera here, what we can think of is in a rule of thumb is that the 5 iron is going to be dead center in your stance, and then all the other clubs that you hit, they're going to move a half a ball. So your 5 iron is going to move, or your 4 iron is going to move a half a ball ahead of center. The 3 iron now is a ball ahead of center. Okay, and if it was a 5 iron is in the center, the 6 iron is a half a ball back. 7 irons a ball back. 8 irons a ball and a half back. So now we're starting to get an idea as to, like, you know, really where should it be on a level lie. That's where it should be. So if I'm setting this one up again, 3 iron, that's where it's going to be. Now, again, wide. Okay, low and wide. Here's what I have a lot of students think about when they're swinging a hybrid or when they're swinging a wood, all right? If you can have this image in your mind, you have a cargo plane, okay, and the cargo plane has to go fly in and pick up some cargo. There's got a big package, okay, that's in a field, let's say. And he's going to fly in and pick it up. And on that package, there's like a big, huge rope. And the rope is firm enough to stand up, all right? And the back of the plane has a hook. So if this ball is the cargo and this club head is the plane can't dive in and pick up the cargo and then dive out. So in other words, the club can't get steep in and then steep out because it's not going to be able to carry the cargo unless it comes in at a low approach. So it's going to glide in, just glide in there at a lower steep angle of a descent into the back of the ball, and then it's going to have to go at a low ascent away and back up, and that's how it's going to kind of sweep that ball right off the turf, and it's going to take off to the target, okay? As opposed to where your irons, you're getting steeper there, okay? So you're not going to be as shallow with those clubs. Of course, if we get to a longer hybrid, and you can't get much longer than this, which is a one hybrid or 16-degree hybrid, okay? So now this ball, if we look at this one here, we're going to see that. Let's take a look at this one from the overhead camera for a second. And what we're going to see here is that this one is really far up in my stance. This is actually set at the same spot as a 3-wood would be almost, okay? So now when I go to set up with that, we can really see that that shaft is leaning just slightly ahead, okay, as opposed to the other clubs. Let's say we take the 4 real quick. We see how much the 4, how that leans more ahead, okay? So there's where the 4 is. There's the 1, okay? So back to the front camera, and we'll see that definitely, too, it's a lot longer shaft.